Have you ever wondered what starter Pokemon would be like with completely different types? Like, what would Bulbasaur look like as a flying type, or what would Totodile look like as an ice type? I have explored this idea in a previous video, and I am now back to continue the idea in this video. So let's go ahead and check it out. If you're like me and really love the artistic side of Pokemon and even drawing and creating your own Pokemon, then today's sponsor, Skillshare, can help. Skillshare is all about taking the stuff you enjoy doing, whether it be drawing, video editing, content creation, whatever, and helping you get better at it so you can get more out of what you like to do. It's also great because it gives you the chance to learn from industry professionals who know the exact stuff that you want to know and have done what you want to do, which is a huge resource and is immensely valuable when you're trying to make the jump into any kind of skill set. For example, I would really like to be like Marquez Brownlee and have 19 million YouTube subscribers, and on Skillshare, I can learn directly from him, aka someone who has actually done that, in his class on YouTube Success. If you're serious about your craft, that isn't an opportunity that you should take lightly. And now that we are officially in summer as well and have a little more time on our hands, now is also a great time to jump in and sharpen those skills that you have, or even learn something completely new that you would like to pick up. The best part is, you can also get started on all this for free if you're quick, because the first 500 people to use my link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So hop on that fast before the opportunity is gone, and a big thank you to Skillshare for supporting the channel. Okay, so in the last video on this topic, I covered the first 3 generations of starters, and so in this video, I'll be covering the starters from Gens 4, 5, and 6. I've also got to give a big shout out to Deims Fakemon for drawing all the artwork of the designs you're about to see, and as always, you can check out Deims with the links in the description below. Another thing I want to mention is that this time around, all bets are off, and I am giving these starters any type that I think would be cool. Last time, I kept them all within type triangles or near type triangles, but this time I'm throwing that out the window and just making whatever I think could be the coolest for each individual starter, cause that's kinda the point of these videos anyway. So with that said, we are going to start things off with the Sinnoh starters, and why don't we begin with the one that's in the thumbnail, Chimchar. I decided to make Chimchar into a ghost type because putting the ghost type on just about anything results in an amazing design in my opinion, and I feel like with Chimchar, it's no different. I also had this image when thinking of this idea of a kind of zombified Chimchar that's in a much more of a chill, lackadaisical kind of state, similar to Hisuian Typhlosion. So that is what we attempted to create here, and how I attempted to justify the ghost type on Chimchar. Essentially, it's been zombified, and its body is now overflowing with ghostly energy. Let's go ahead and move on now though, and look at another one of the Sinnoh starters, and this time it's gonna be Turtwig. I decided to make Turtwig a dragon type, because just like with the ghost type, making anything into a dragon type is gonna be cool. I also did it because Turtwig is a turtle, so a reptile, which is similar to dragons, so it just felt like the dragon type could be a natural fit here as well. I also wanted to envision it as if it was a pseudo-legendary too, cause that just sounded like a really cool idea, and because as a starter, Turtwig already has an especially unique and cool design that gets a little more attention put into it like pseudos often do as well. The final result ended up looking pretty neat in my opinion, and it also feels quite armored as well, so it could potentially evolve into a dragon steel type if you were to keep this line going, which could also be really cool. Finally, we now have Piplup to look at to round off the Sinnoh starters, and I have decided to make Piplup into an ice type Pokemon. This one was a pretty natural choice as well, since Piplup and its family are all based on penguins, so it only makes sense to imagine them as what is probably their most fitting type alongside the water type. This was especially fun to do with Piplup in particular, because in going along with its whole Emperor Penguin theme, Piplup is meant to more or less be a knave or a commoner, if you will, and at least to me, it seems like it's meant to be wearing one of those chainmail helmets that soldiers would often wear in medieval times. So this clothing connection is what inspired a big part of this Piplup's design, as it swaps out the chainmail helmet for some adorable winter attire. I mean, just look at that hat, are you kidding me? So, would you pick any of these Sinnoh starters to journey with if they were in fact these types? Let me know in the comments while we go ahead and move on and check out the Unova starters. Unova's starter offerings consist of Snivy, Tepig, and Oshawott, and as you usually do, let's go ahead and begin with the grass starter, Snivy, or in this case, the dragon type starter. I decided to make Snivy a dragon type for basically the same reasons I made Turtwig into a dragon type. It's a reptile, so the dragon type fits nicely, the dragon type is just cool, and I wanted to give it a more pseudo-legendary type of feel. The design is also inspired by the dragons of Medea from Greek mythology, who, just like Snivy, were also serpents themselves. Next up, we've got Tepig to look at though, and I decided to make Tepig into a flying type. I picked the flying type because a Pokemon like Tepig clearly has no business being a flying type, which makes giving it a type it definitely shouldn't be able to have all the more fun. Especially when there's an actual legit way that we could convert it into a flying type. This Tepig is based around the phrase, "when pigs fly," and it actually achieves some flight itself by taking the little ball that is on the tail of the original Tepig and converting it into a balloon, and it uses that balloon as a sort of flotation device, if you will, to raise its body off the ground and become airborne. This is one of my more favorite designs of this bunch because, as I said, it shouldn't work at all, but it actually does so well at the same time. And those are the kinds of Pokemon designs that are especially fun in my opinion. And now we come to Oshawott, and for Oshawott, I decided to make it into a Steel type. The reasoning for this is pretty simple, and it's that it simply pulls the typing from its samurai inspirations. Samurai are obviously known for their swords, and I mean, these Pokemon literally carry weapons on their bodies already, so it felt like an easy choice. I also really love the color scheme that this gave Oshawott as well, as the black and gold looks super cool, and it looks really nice in my opinion next to the gray and blue of the rest of its design. And now we come to the Kalos starters. These three are obviously about to be in the spotlight with Pokemon Legends ZA on the way, so let's see what they could look like with completely different types. Starting off, we have the best boy Chespin, and I decided to go ahead and make him into an Ice type. I loved how the Ice types turned out in the last video on this topic, so I just had to do a couple more here, and I think this one turned out really good. The concept here is that along with the typical icification that you would expect your normal Ice-type Pokemon to have, this Chespin has become an Ice type because he has a literal cold. The grass on its head has turned into one of those bags that you put on your head when you're sick, the grass around its face has now turned into icicles, and what is possibly my favorite feature of all, its tail has now become a thermometer. In my opinion, Chespin is definitely one of the best and most underrated starters out there, and the way that it also looks this good as an Ice type just reaffirms that to me even more. Let's go ahead and move on to the Fire type of the Kalos starters though, Fennekin. Due to the witchy vibes that Fennekin's family have, I have decided to make it a Ghost type. And even though this seemed like an awesome idea because it's a good fit and it's just the Ghost type as I've said before, placing it onto Fennekin ended up being a little less straightforward than you might expect. For example, I initially was going to give it a ghostly gray color, but that was too close to Fennekin's shiny. I also looked at purple, similar to what I did with Chimchar, but that didn't feel quite right either, which is what ultimately led me to a black color scheme with gray accents. And while it might feel kind of just like a color swap for this design, there is one element of this design in particular that I absolutely love and really brings in the ghostly vibes to this Pokemon. Since a big part of both Fennekin and Braixen's designs are their tails and how they resemble witch brooms, this ghost-type Fennekin has its tail resembling a ghost, which is why I made sure to make it that ghostly gray color. And if you look closely, you'll also see that its tail is detached from its body as well, and is simply floating behind it. To me, that really makes the difference with this design and brings the ghost-type vibes full circle. And speaking of bringing things full circle, let's round out the Kalos starters with Froakie. And with Froakie, I have decided to make it a flying type. Like with Tepig, I went with the flying type for the novelty of it not being a type that Froakie should be able to have at all. But I felt like I could make it work because of the foam that's around Froakie's neck. I felt like that could be converted into clouds for a flying type design, which would justify the flying type, and then from there, the concept really came together because that ultimately led to basing this design off of the phrase, head in the clouds, and as you can see, Froakie's head is literally in the clouds, which in my opinion made this one turn out awesome, and it honestly might be my favorite of the whole bunch. Who is your favorite of the whole bunch, though? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more. You can also check out my Patreon if you'd like to further support the channel and help make videos happen, which gets you a bunch of benefits as well, and you can always listen to my Pokemon remixes on Spotify or wherever you get your music to support too, and it's also extremely appreciated as well. With that said, I will be back with another new video very soon, and until then, as always, thanks so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.